Kenyans face a deepening cost of living crisis as tax hikes on essentials and imports are introduced to service the 11.8 trillion national debt. IEBC facing crisis of confidence as missing records spark outcry over election fairness. Human activities and climate change are causing severe droughts and drying up water sources as deforestation destroys the environment's natural protection. Multilateral lenders now hold over half of Kenya's external debt, but the IMF's refusal to complete its latest review due to slow reforms has triggered a major crisis of confidence. Hello and welcome to Worldwide News on TV7. Welcome our viewers in Kenya and around the world. My name is Mildred Odhiambo and I'll be with you in the next 30 minutes. Thank you for joining us. Join our conversations on all our social media platforms at TV7 on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter as we dive deep into the broadcast. In our top economic story, Kenya is currently dealing with a very difficult money situation as the total amount of money the country owes has passed the 70% mark. To fix this, the government is looking for ways to spend less and collect more taxes effectively. But experts are worried that these changes might make life even harder for poor families who are already struggling to put food and basic needs on the table. At the same time, the government has been taking out loans with very high interest rates from private banks because these loans must be paid back in dollars. It is making the Kenyan shillings weaker. This means that everything we buy from other countries becomes more expensive, making life tougher for every Kenyan citizen. Our correspondent tells us more.
Yes, Mildred, it is a tough reality out here. The government is taking out these expensive loans in dollars. The Kenyan shilling is losing its strength, and every time the Kenyan shilling weakens, the price of everything we get from abroad, like fuel and cooking oil, goes up. I have spoken to traders here who say they are forced to raise prices just to stay in business.
Kusema kweli, wakati huu si kama zamani. Vitu hasiendi haraka. Kwa sababu kama sasa ukiangalia kibanda changu pale juu hakuna vitu. Maana zamani ilikuwa ikijaza, lakini sasa siwezi jaza juu vitu siko na bei kali sana, nashindwa kununua.
Like unapata our things now are from the local manufacturers, although we get some things from Tanzania maybe or even Senegal, everything, because we are all about Africa. Unapata taxes ziko juu sana. If you want to bring like the materials or something, unapata iko juu sana na ina like the taxes, so hata kupromote other people unapata hivyo kujipromote ina become even harder and harder and harder.
Yani kama tunataka iongezwe ama hatutaki inaongezangwa tu. Vitu zinaongezwa tu.
People feel like they are paying debts they did not take themselves. The baby steps the government says it feels more like a heavy burden to the families trying to survive the week. Back to you in studio, Mildred.
Thank you so much for your insights. Now, joining us in studio is an expert on economic fragility, George Moro. Welcome. How can Kenya realistically fund its basic services and triple the pace of economic growth while spending nearly 70% of its taxes on debt payments?
In relation to our country, each and every year, the government comes up with a budget. It comes up with a method to finance that budget. Each and every year we have what we call a finance bill. And finance bill basically is just more measures to raise more revenue than what the government raised in previous years. We had Finance Bill 2023, we had Finance Bill 2024, which basically 2024 was just an increase in tax compared to what they taxed the previous year, you see? So like this financial year, this is 2020, we are financial year 2025-2026. Currently they are drafting the budget. When the budget will be presented to the government, to the parliament, it will also come with a way to finance that budget.
It is clear that the hole in the nation's pocket is deep and the burden on the citizens is getting heavier by day. But as we struggle with high prices and debt, many are asking, where is the leadership to steer us out of the storm?
Kenyans they know. Basically, I don't know if it is our ignorance or what, but Kenyans has to, we call it fasten the belt. Yeah, they have to fasten the belt. Many businesses close down due to lack of capital. Many individuals also close their shops, those who run sole proprietorship, because of that. And domestic taxation. People need to prepare for that. We are heading into a period whereby it's going to be very critical. And Kenyans, as I said when I started, they need to fasten their belt.
Thank you so much for your insights. On to our next story. Beyond the economy, the very foundation of our democracy is under pressure. Following recent disputes over vote tallies and allegations of rigging, the nation is holding its breath. Our correspondent, Job Ojuma, has more on this. How is this political tension over electoral malpractice adding to the citizens' fears?
Many citizens feel that if the leaders they choose are not the one who end up in the office due to election malpractices, then their voices on economic will never be heard. We are seeing a big gap between what the officials are saying and what the people on the ground are saying.
Kenya, there have never been a fair election. The only fair election we did in Kenya was on 2002, where Moi hand over power to Kibaki.
Kenyans have realized that our problem is bad governance. Whether it is one of your own who is in the presidency, our problem in this country is bad governance. So Kenyans will not be divided along tribal lines. Kenyans will not fight each other. Kenyans will fight bad governance.
As you can see, Mildred, the various stories flipping sides of the same coin. The citizens are tired. They are tired of the high taxes. The feeling of the system is rigged against them. Unless there is transparency in how we are governed, the economic hole will only get deeper. Reporting for TV7 News Nairobi, my name is Job Ojuma.
Powerful insights, Job. It seems honesty is the currency the public is begging for right now, both in the ballot box and in the national budget. Thank you for that update. Joining us in studio is a legal expert, Ezra Odhiambo, who's to help us understand what is this unrest means to the country. Thank you for coming. Since new commissioners are finally in office, can the IEBC actually run a fair 2027 election while admitting they don't have the time or the money to fix unfair voting boundaries?
Make a leeway for the systems to work. When the systems work, there is a proper flow of power, channel of power, whereby we don't have to question a minor secretary whose work was supposed to be done, but was done via a phone call, like so-and-so do this, so-and-so do this. But if we have a system that is structured to work and it serves the citizens, then it will give this beautiful country the beautiful picture.
Thank you so much for that update. And now, we'll be taking a short break. Don't go too far because we'll be back with more updates on climate and multilateralism.
Karibu.
Soko ugali na kupenda na roho yangu tangu mama akupike sijaonja mwingine nashindwa na uzuri wako we na kupenda we soko nawe ladha tamu sijaonja mwingine na kupenda we soko.
Try the irresistible Soko Maize Meal that delivers every time. Soko Maize Meal, happiness in every pack.
Welcome back to World West News on TV7. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can join our conversations on all our social media platforms at TV7 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as we dive deep into the broadcast. On to our next story. To prevent violent conflicts over dwindling resources, Kenya is strengthening local peace communities and sharing water sources among neighboring communities this month to stop climate-driven tensions. Officials are setting up rules for grazing lands and building shared water tanks in dry regions to ensure everyone has enough during the current drought. This effort is vital because extreme weather is making traditional resources scarce, forcing different groups to compete for survival and increasing the risk of deadly disputes. Our correspondent has more.
Human activities like cutting down trees for charcoal and clearing land for farms have stripped the earth of its natural protection, causing water sources to dry up and rainfall to fail. This destruction of forest and soil, combined with the heat from burning fuels, creates severe climate shocks, like the drought seen in Mandera and Turkana. Without trees to keep the ground cool or rivers to provide water, communities are left in a desperate struggle to survive on vanishing resources.
When trees are planted, you realize there are projects, there are proposals that have even been written to government. Even the government have such budgets of ensuring even trees are planted along the river lines that we have. They need to be clear so much that when that water comes, then it flows and it goes to where it's supposed to be going.
Resource competition is the new front line. If we cannot manage our water and land, no amount of economic reform or election results will bring peace. The hunger for resources is just as dangerous as the hunger for power. Reporting for Worldwide News on TV7, my name is Helga Mbodze.
Thank you for that update. Now joining me in studio is Dr. Kevin Okech, a climate strategist. Karibu sana. As climate shocks become more frequent, how can Kenya stop water and pasture scarcity from turning into violent conflicts between neighboring communities?
One, ensuring that the drainage are working well so that the dirty water can be taken away from where people are living. Number two, the government or the NGOs, an individual, by the way, sometimes I always say that individuals are the barriers of the healthy environment. They should also create an avenue that can teach an individuals within the society the importance of cleanness, because waterborne disease related to cleanliness. If you don't cope with cleanliness, then automatically you invite waterborne diseases, and they kill. They are like silent killers. They kill immediately. So we should have a mechanism that will ensure that the environment that we live in are, number one, clean, protected and safeguarded by us, but also with the authority that governs us.
Thank you so much for those insights. That was Dr. Kevin, warning us that the ground beneath our feet is changing. Nature is giving us a harsher reality check. On to our last story. Kenya does not stand alone. Much of the survival depends on the promises of foreign nations and international organizations. However, those promises are fading as the world turns inwards. This is the crisis of weakened multilateralism, where we are left dependent on help that may never arrive. How much longer can we rely on others to fix our problems? Our correspondent tells us more.
The global village is closing its gates. We are seeing a dangerous trend of external dependency where we wait for foreign grants to fund our schools, our health, and even our border security. As bigger nations face their own problems, they are cutting back. The funds promised during climate summits or debt relief are trickling in too slowly. We are discovering that when the rest of the world sneezes, Kenya catches a cold, and right now, we don't have the medicine to treat it ourselves. The message from the streets and the offices is the same. It is time to stop asking when will they help us and start asking how do we help ourselves. If we don't break this cycle of dependency, our future will always be written in a foreign language.
Thank you so much for your insights. Joining me in studio is an expert with more insights on multilateralism as major global powers pull back from international organizations. How can Kenya survive the loss of traditional aid without trapping itself in unfavorable bilateral deals with individual nations?
First of all, There is, on the individual basis, there is no individual who has grown and created wealth without being funded. I'll advise the Kenyan government to majorly focus on borrowing to invest. Borrow and put the money in a capital project. A project that will generate income to service that loan, number one, or a project that will attract investors. So we focus on capital projects, borrow for capital gain, for projects that bring income. We avoid borrowing for recurrent expenditure.
Thank you so much for those insights.
Good morning.
Dad, vitamin B2 ni nini?
Vitamin B2 zinapatikana kwa Ilara Fresh Milk. Na unahitaji hizo vitamins kila siku kupata energy, yani mawowo.
Mawowo. Mawowo ya kucheza, mawowo ya kuruka, mawowo ya kuswing, mawowo ya kudunk. Mawowo.
Ilara Fresh Milk, jijaze mawowo.
And that brings us to the end of Worldwide News. Stay tuned by subscribing to our daily updates and joining us on all our social media platforms at TV7 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, only on Worldwide News. A special thank you goes to our dedicated correspondents in the field, the incredible production crew, and everyone working behind the scenes to make sure this project made it through. I have been with you, Mildred Odhiambo. Until next time, take care and stay connected.